I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. The chilling story of a Philadelphia abortion doctor will get reaction from a leading pro-life activist. Plus, ahead of the March for Life, what else is being done to bring an end to abortion?
We're going to give women and really babies' fathers and the community a real choice, and that choice is life.
And we'll talk more about it as we go into the deep with Bishop DiMarzio.
There's no such thing as settled law. No such thing that things can't be changed in our democratic society and system.
Good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's a story that shocked the world just days before the annual March for Life in Washington. An abortion doctor charged with murdering 7 babies at his clinic in Philadelphia. Dr. Kermit Gosnell is accused of delivering the babies alive and then using scissors to sever their spinal cords. He's also charged in the death of a woman who overdosed on painkillers while waiting to have an abortion. Patients have described the conditions at the clinic as barbaric, and some details are really just truly horrifying. Prosecutors say bags containing aborted fetuses were scattered throughout the office, and shelves were lined with severed feet. Over 30 years, Gosnell is believed to have made millions of dollars from performing late-term abortions, reportedly catering to the poor, immigrant, and minority women in that community. Well, to talk more about this, I spoke by phone with pro-life activist Alveda King today. She's the niece of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a pastoral associate with Priests for Life. Well, Dr. Alveda King, thank you so much for joining us here today on Currents. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you and your viewers.
Well, first of all, I just want to get your initial reaction to the news about this abortion clinic and really the tragedy that took place there.
Well, actually, the news was very shocking, very tragic. I'm glad that the community has decided to move and do something about the tragedy of an abortion clinic that is harming women and, of course, killing babies and harming women and taking lives. It is not so unusual, though, across America and across the globe. Abortion clinics are simply required to sometimes meet regulations that a general practitioner or medical doctor might meet. They're not required to meet the stringent precautions and procedures that surgical facilities do. And so you could expect that women would lose their lives, women would be harmed, women would be maimed, babies would be aborted, and then sometimes not necessarily aborted, but harmed for life. You could expect these kinds of things. So it's a very terrible circumstance. The thing that bothered me a lot, of course, too, the abortion network in Philadelphia knew about it, decided that they wanted to not work with him or that clinic, but they did not report it. I believe perhaps the medical officials may have had some suspicion, but they did not do anything because there's a veil of secrecy and a veil of permissiveness over abortion clinics. They get away with too much.
Right. Well, this doctor appears to have been practicing under the radar for some time, I believe since about 1979. Could the fact that the clinic was located, and I know this is something that you're actually pretty passionate about, very passionate about as a matter of fact, could the fact that his clinic was located in a poor, primarily minority area, could that have played a role here in these practices kind of going undetected for so long?
Well, tragically, the fact that the abortion providers, primarily headed up by Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger's philosophy that colored people are like weeds and they need to be exterminated. She founded Planned Parenthood, Birth Control League, and Planned Parenthood. So that attitude is still very prevalent. Let's get rid of the undesirable members of our population, and to eugenicists and genocide-minded people that often will be the African-American community, the Hispanic community, and certainly that had something to do with it. And a doctor like this can put a smile on and even go out among society to church and community functions. I'm helping our community. And so as long as that facade is allowed, then you have a tragedy like this.
Right. Well, of course, and this is a tragedy. Do you think it is a rare tragedy, or do you think maybe perhaps this is indicative of what's happening maybe at other places throughout the country?
This definitely is not a rare tragedy. We have many cases. When I say we, I'm affiliated with Priests for Life, with the National Black Pro-Life Movement. And we get calls, we go out to communities. There are women who have been hurt, harmed, maimed, and actually killed. There are some families that we counsel with who have lost their children through abortion. The girl went in either coerced or at least not informed, and then did not get to come back home. A lot of times the injustices and the harmful procedures are done in the abortion, and the doctor will throw a sheet over the girl and slip her to a hospital and leave her at the back door, so to speak. And so a lot of these things are not reported, but this is not uncommon. The lie of a safe abortion is being exposed. Abortion is surgery. It really is surgery, and it is dangerous. And so it's a lie. You know, my uncle, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said the Negro is not, the Negro cannot win as long as he is willing to sell the futures of his children for immediate personal comfort and safety. So this doctor has sold the futures of many children.
One last quick question here, Dr. King. Just wanted to ask you about the March for Life, of course, coming up here just around the corner, and this, of course, tragedy happening just before the March for Life. Do you think that this serves as kind of an encouragement to the people, I guess, so to speak, to those who will be marching in Washington, as saying this is what we're fighting against? Or is it maybe discouraging to people who are marching because it seems like the battle is something that still has a long way to go before it's won?
Again, my uncle said, truth crushed to earth will rise again. And we are seeing truth now, and it's going across national media. It's probably going across the globe, definitely across the internet. So we are encouraged when we see truth come forward, when these lies are exposed. That is very encouraging. And what's also encouraging, you'll see thousands and thousands in Washington speaking out for those who cannot speak out for themselves. We are very encouraged, and we're not turning back. We're not turning around. We're moving forward, and we're insisting that our leaders of this great nation hear our voices. So we are very encouraged, and I'm very encouraged that you allowed me to share this story today.
All right. Well, Dr. Alveda King, we are very appreciative to you for spending some time with us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, stay with us. There's much more currents coming up. When we do come back, the latest on what's being done to fight abortion here in New York. Welcome back to Currents. Now, as we just heard, Alveda King remains one of the strongest and most passionate voices in the pro-life movement. She travels the country to make sure that voice is heard, and last week brought her here to New York. Along with a number of faith leaders, she joined Chris Slattery, director of Expectant Mother Care Pregnancy Centers, to call on New Yorkers to help lower the high number of abortions in New York City, particularly in minority communities. I was at last week's rally and found a crowd that was fired up about their pro-life message. Supporters of the pro-life movement rallied for their cause Monday night.
We're going to celebrate life tonight. Are you with me tonight?
And they heard some sobering statistics.
In New York City, in the last 40 years, according to the vital statistics data for the city of New York, we have aborted 4.3 million babies.
The message at this rally for life at Manhattan Bible Church in the Inwood neighborhood was twofold. First, speakers said that studies have shown minority communities are being targeted by abortion groups.
At the conclusion of their study, they found that there was a direct correlation between the location of the abortion clinics and race, and the black race in particular.
The second message was just as clear. Speakers wanted their supporters to help defeat City Council Bill 371, which would impose restrictions on crisis pregnancy centers' advertisements and signage.
If we're going to put these signs up, I want to see signs on every abortion clinic door saying that the abortion we are going to sell you today has killed women.
Any woman who's pregnant and in need, come to the church and we will help you. We'll do whatever it takes for you to have your baby. The other side is starting to realize that we're pretty effective doing that. And so this is the way they're going to try to shut us down. We have to preserve the independence of those clinics.
Supporters of New York's pro-life movement not only gathered here tonight in Upper Manhattan to protest against City Council Bill 371, organizers also encouraged them to take action against it. They passed out these flyers which have the names, telephone numbers, and email addresses for several city council members in the city of New York, along with a list of particular talking points that they wanted to read off to those city council members when they call or email.
Supporters of Bill 371 say they want truth in advertising, that crisis pregnancy centers should make mention of the fact that they don't provide abortion or contraception or make referrals to those services. But for those here tonight, including keynote speaker Dr. Alveda King, Bill 371 is the council's attempt at trying to shut down those crisis pregnancy centers.
Bill 371 is trying to silence the truth. Why don't they just post signs outside their offices saying, "We kill your babies here"? That's what they should post that, because that's what they do.
We know that as we stand in support of pregnancy care centers, we're going to give women and really babies' fathers and the community a real choice, and that choice is life.
Dr. King, who is the niece of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., also took time to speak about abortion in terms familiar to her family.
The truth is that life is a civil right. Yes, absolutely. Abortion is a civil wrong.
But the primary goal of this rally was to defeat a city council bill supporters here feel is discriminatory. Chris Slattery says they could be well on their way to doing that.
With over 300 attendees from parishes and churches across the city of New York, with numerous priests and bishops and pastors and ministers and chaplains and lay people, leaders from all the boroughs, we've seen a great outpouring of support for the life centers of New York City and against Bill 371.
Stay tuned when we return. The day's headlines, including more calls to protect Christians around the world. And you may not believe who's thrown his hat into the ring for the 2012 presidential race. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Just ahead, what's on tap for the March for Life in D.C.? I'll go into the deep with Bishop DiMarzio to talk about it. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. A former worker at an abortion clinic in Massachusetts is getting a hefty reward for her part in the clinic being shut down. The pro-life organization Operation Rescue is giving Kim Nichols a $25,000 reward. Nichols provided evidence that an abortion doctor's negligence resulted in the death of a woman. The reward is part of Operation Rescue's Abortion Whistleblowers program. Meanwhile, the founder of Operation Rescue has thrown his hat into the 2012 presidential race. Randall Terry, a Catholic convert, says he's running as a Democrat against President Obama. Terry says he'll run ads with images of aborted fetuses during this year's Super Bowl. He says his candidacy will have two goals: to bring an end to abortion in America and reduce the federal budget by fighting to end all entitlements. From Florida, the pastor who threatened to burn the Quran on the anniversary of 9/11 has been banned from entering the United Kingdom. Terry Jones had been invited to visit the UK by an English nationalist group. A government spokesman said in a statement, quote, "The government opposes extremism in all its forms, which is why we have excluded Jones." Jones, who has family in England, says he'll fight that ban. The European Parliament is calling on governments around the world to do more to protect Christians from persecution. The Parliament says the situation for Christian communities is so bad in some cases that it's endangering their existence. The EU Parliament says that if Christians were to disappear, the countries involved would lose a significant part of their religious heritage. Well, from Toronto, word today of a controversial art exhibit, and one many find downright offensive. Titled Persona Non Grata, The Veil of History, it includes a portrait of Pope Benedict riddled with bullet holes. Another image is of President Obama nailed to a cross. The exhibit at the Bezpala Brown Gallery is scheduled to open next month. And a valuable piece of art is back where it belongs with the Orthodox Church of Cyprus. It's all courtesy of a popular music star, a pop music star, I should say. Singer Boy George purchased that work as an icon of Christ back in 1985, 11 years after the Turkish invasion. George was unaware at that time that the icon was stolen. He returned it after the church proved it was the rightful owner. Boy George says he was happy that it was going to be back where it belonged. Well, stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. When we return, it's just 2 days away, the March for Life. We'll talk about it as we go into the deep.
Most of the marches, there were young people. You know, that means that they want life. There's a lot of hope in that situation.
Finally tonight, it is almost here, the 2011 March for Life. It's happened every year since 1974 on the anniversary of the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision, which legalized abortion across the country. Well, we saw earlier in the show last week's rally in Manhattan, where pro-life leaders gathered to pray and work to bring an end to abortion. Also this month, the church in New York announced a bold new initiative to lower the number of abortions in the city. I had a chance to talk about that and more with one of the men behind that very initiative, Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, on this week's Into the Deep. Bishop DiMarzio, thanks for being here. We appreciate your time.
Good to be here again.
Well, of course, coming up this weekend, celebrating the, well, not celebrating, but marking the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. And do you think, what's your sort of sense of the state of where we stand as far as life issues go as we approach this anniversary?
I think as the recent polls that have been taken have shown that people really don't like abortions. They don't want people to have abortions. They're against abortions. Most people say it should still be legal. And I think that's a breakthrough. It's a change of people's attitude. They recognize, I think, the tragedy in our own country to recognize that we have so many abortions. A couple of weeks ago, we had a press conference, the Archbishop, myself, and other religious leaders, emphasizing the fact that 41% of the pregnancies that occur in New York City are ended in abortion. Which is an incredible number.
Wow.
And the highest is with the Afro-American population and next to Latinos. The highest borough is Bronx, then comes Brooklyn and Queens. So we see that it's happening, and so many children are aborted. They don't have a chance at life. Probably the most dangerous place in America today, unfortunately, is to be in a womb of a woman, and you know you're really fighting for your life. I said this, and I don't know if I said it before here, but I had an X-ray done about 2 months ago now, and I was in the X-ray room, and I'm looking at the wall because they're put in the back was the back of X-ray, and the sign says, if you are pregnant or may be pregnant, please let us know so we can protect your unborn baby. This is a non-Catholic hospital. I mean, I was just kind of medical science knows. And they recognize that these are unborn children and need to be protected in the womb if you're going to X-ray them. But they're not protected by the law, and where anybody, for any reason, can abort that child. So maybe attitudes are changing. Maybe we can understand better. And one of the problems is we don't know why people have abortions.
Sure.
You know, the abortion industry's kept those people away. The research has not been done. We don't know. Is it because of poverty, inconvenience, certainly rape and incest, the infinitesimal part of it, they're unfortunate, very unfortunate, but that's not obviously the major reason. What are the reasons? What can we do then to change and give people assistance so they don't resort to abortion?
Sure.
So we need to know that, otherwise we're never going to get a handle on this problem.
Right, get to the root cause of it, and you'll kind of, hopefully find some way to make it reduce. Now, after, of course, all this time since Roe v. Wade was decided by the Supreme Court, a lot of people say now that they've really kind of become complacent with that being settled law, and they say that it's just not going to change. What do you say to those people, and is there hope in your view for change?
I say, remember the Dred Scott decision? That was a Supreme Court decision that made slavery possible. Well, if that was settled law, we'd still have slaves in this country. If we couldn't go even against what the Supreme Court said and there wasn't a change, where would we be today? We have half of the country, 25% of the people be slaves. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. There's no such thing as settled law. Yeah. No such thing that things can't be changed in our democratic society and system. So that's what I say. I mean, we've got to work towards letting people understand that things are wrong. We have wrong decisions. We have mistaken understanding. Things change over time, too. Like we understood slavery differently. Was wrong. Was always wrong, but we came to understand how wrong it was. Same thing with abortion. Yeah. I look forward that we will mature as a society, that we will understand better the issue of life, and that we will protect life.
Right. And March for Life coming up as well. Right. Another big event. What's your message to folks going to participate in that? Well,
again, they're witnesses, witnesses for life, and we encourage them because it does show that there is a large group of people, especially young people. Most of the marches there are young people. That means that they want life. They're young people. They're the future citizens that will vote. I think there's a lot of hope in that situation.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Bishop DiMarzio, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time. And don't miss NET's continuing coverage of the events surrounding this year's March for Life in Washington. Tune in to NET on Sunday evening at 6:30, again Monday morning at 7:30 to watch the religious services live. Our Natalia Ortiz will also be airing updates from the March site at the top of every hour, starting Monday at 10 a.m. You can also watch it all live online. Go to netny.net and click Watch Now. Remember, Currents is also online at currentsny.net. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night and a great weekend.